the Cold War era. So we will not going to discuss the entire chapter in throughout way, but we will try to discuss on some of the important topics as well as the different explanations given in this particular chapter. So if you can observe in this first slide, yes, the Cold War, its meaning, causes and features. So as a student of political science, we have to remember that the world had faced two world wars within 40 years. The First World War was fought from 1914 to 1918, and the second one was from 1939 to 1945. So, after the end of Second World War, there were two main superpowers which were immersed in the world front. They were the United States of America, and the second one was Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, that is called USSR. So the Cold War refers to a series of competition, tensions and confrontations between the United States of America and Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, backed by their respective allies. So it means Cold War was a confrontation and competition between the two superpowers. But actually, it was not only related to the direct confrontations between the two countries, but it was a silent war between these two superpowers. So, what are the basic features which we can observe about the Cold War? The first one was competition for power. So, both the superpowers were trying to make allies, or they were having so many nuclear weapons tested, and as well as they were trying to consolidate their power in the different continents. So obviously it was a competition for power between the two superpowers. The second one is the balance of power. So both the superpowers know that the direct confrontation could create so many problems for the world. That's why they were using the balance of power, in which they were trying to make some allies and try to attract some of the developing countries in their allies, so that there could be a balance of power between them. Then the third one is ideological war. Actually, the Cold War was an ideological war between liberal democratic versus communist, or we can say it a capitalist versus socialist ideology. So we all know, as a student of political science, that liberal democratic refers to an ideology which believes in the free competition as well as in the private property. But in the communist mode, we can check out that this believes in the social ownership of the entire property. Then, no direct war. The fourth feature of the Cold War was there was no direct war between the two superpowers, but there were some confrontations in which their allies countries were involved. At that particular time period, they had the allies countries, and the time period for the Cold War was from 1945 to 1991. So now in this series we will try to discuss the causes of the Cold War. The first one is the use of atom bomb by USA in 1945. Why it was a cause? Because on 6th and 9th of August, USA used the atom bombs, and the entire world did not inform about this atom pump or the use of atom pumps. So, because of this lack of information, some of these countries were unhappy with the decision of USA. So, USSR tried to make some weapons like atom bombs. Then after, there was an arms race between the two superpowers. So after the 1945, it was observed that both the superpowers were totally against each other. That's why they had started the arms race. And in that series, a lot of destructive weapons were prepared by both the countries to confront each other. Then the allies making. The next feature or the next cause which was related to the Cold War is alliance making. Both the superpowers were trying to attract some of the countries. We all know that some of the organizations like NATO, CETO, CENTO, and Warsaw Pact, they had made these type of alliances to confront with each other. Then the control on the newly emerged countries of the third world. Actually, after 1945, a lot of countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America had got independence from their colonial masters. So whenever they emerged as the new countries, the two superpowers have got a chance to attract them in their allies. So I hope with the help of these two discussions, you are able to understand that what was Cold War and what were the main causes of Cold War. So now we are going to the next slide, that is the emergence of alliance system and the policy of deterrence. So in the series of the alliance system, the first one was the NATO, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So it was formed by the USA with 12 states of European countries. Then it was formed in April 1949 and it was called the Western Alliance. Then in 1954, another organization was formed by USA and it was called Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. So it was formed in 1954 and it is called the Geneva Accord because in Geneva this treaty was signed between the different countries. Then the third one was CENTO, that was called Central and East Asian Nations Treaty Organization, and it is also called Baghdad Pact, and it was signed in 1955 and it was also called Western Alliances. So it's a question of concern that how the communist countries try to consolidate their power. They had prepared for the Warsaw Pact and it was signed in 1955 and it is called Eastern Alliances or Eastern European countries were the basic part of this particular alliance. So with the help of these four, you can understand that the countries of European continent as well as some of the other countries were become the part of these alliances or alliance systems. Then the question arises, why small countries join the alliances with these? So whenever the small countries have got a chance to become a part of these alliances, they were assured for the protection, that means the security of the nation, as well as the help via the weapons and economic aid from the different superpowers. That's why they had joined these alliances. Then why superpowers involved in alliance system? So how it was helpful for the superpowers? For this, they were having the supply of different natural and raw material resources at very low rates. Second, territory and launch of weapons against their enemies. Third, the spy on each other. It means both USA and USSR were able to spy on the different countries via the help of small countries or the alliance system. Then the economical benefits were also available for the developed countries, or we can say the two of the superpowers. So with the help of these 2 points, we can understand that how the alliance system was helpful for both the small countries as well as for the superpowers. Now, what was the policy of deterrence? We all know that when the two superpowers know that they have to understand that if they will involve in a direct confrontation with each other, the world would be destroyed. So that's why even after the so many disputes and arms race, both superpowers were not involved in direct war. So both sides have the capacity to retaliate against an attack and to cause so much destruction that neither can afford to initiate war. That's why both the countries were not involved in the direct confrontations, and this policy was called the policy of deterrence. So now please try to observe the map, that is a map of the NATO members as well as Warsaw Pact members. So with this help, you can easily understand that the entire European countries as well as some of the Asian countries were directly involved in the alliance system. So England, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, these countries were the part of the NATO, and others like Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and the Eastern Germany, sorry. So these were the parts of the USSR or Warsaw Pact. So this was the map of the different alliance system. Now we come to the next slide. Yes, that is Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, that was called SEATO. And if you can observe here, Australia, Burma, Cambodia, Canada, France, Indonesia, Japan, Laos, Malaysia, New Zealand, and even Pakistan was the member of SEATO. Okay, so with the help of this particular map, you can easily understand that which countries were the member of SEATO, that was Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. Then now come to the CENTO. So in this particular organization, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and if you can observe in the European countries, this country is England. So these countries were the member of the CENTO. Now come to the next point, that is arenas of Cold War and Cuban Missile Crisis. So what is arenas of Cold War? Actually, arenas of Cold War refers to some of the direct confrontations between the two superpowers. And in this series, at the beginning of the chapter of NCERT, you can observe the Cuban Missile Crisis. So the areas where crisis and war occurred or threatened to occur between the alliance system but did not cross certain limits is called arenas of Cold War. And please try to observe these type of definitions, because now the CBSE is taking the exam of multiple choice questions also. So you have to prepare yourself for those multiple choice questions, or we can say the objective type questions. So the basic areas which we can call arenas of Cold War were the war in Korea from 1950 to 1953, then Berlin, that means in Germany, 1958 to 62, then in Congo in 1960. And some other examples were the Vietnam and Afghanistani problems. And in class 10th, you had already discussed about these points. And the most complicated situation was occurred during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1961. Actually, Cuba was a base for the USSR from where he spies on the USA and its allies. So, how it was possible? So, diplomatic communications, interventions by non-alignment movement, United Nations organizations and Secretary General of the UNO, and the problems related to the weapons create some situations, and because of that the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1961 did not change into the Third World War. So the collaboration in limiting or eliminating nuclear or non-nuclear weapons create some situations after this particular situation of Cuban Missile Crisis. So the first example where the two superpowers were involved in the disarmament were the Limited Test Ban Treaty, which was signed on 10th October 1963. Then the second treaty was Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that is called NPT, which was signed on 1st January 1967 and which was came into force on 5th March 1970, I'm sorry, then extended indefinitely in 1995. Then Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, that is called SALT-1, it was entered into force on 3rd October 1972. Then Strategic Arms Limitation Talks second, that is called SALT-2, on 18th June 1979. Then Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, that is called START-1, that was signed by the USSR President Mikhail Gorbachev and the US President George Bush Sr. on Moscow on 31st July 1991. Then after there is a Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty second, START second, on 3rd January 1993. So with the help of the previous slides or the maps, we can easily understand that actually what was the Cold War, what was the alliance system, and because of the Cold War, the entire world becomes bipolar world. So in the next class or in the next series of this particular topic, we will try to discuss on the challenges to bipolarity, the non-alignment movement, as well as the role of India in non-alignment movement. Okay, till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you very much, everyone.